Welcome to Drive for Service, a podcast to inspire a higher quality of service. Welcome everybody to our next episode of Drive for Service podcast. I'm here with my good friend of 14 years, David O'Connor, co-owner of Medlar Restaurant in Chelsea.
Hello.
I've worked for many years in customer service, most of them with David in restaurants, and we're hoping to discover by talking to the industry's best how they go about delivering a level of service that goes above and beyond.
Thank you. Yeah. So the next guest, I'm delighted to welcome Wendy Loizia, who's worked in the industry for over 35 years and is a good regular medlar. Welcome, Wendy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
So Wendy, tell us about your career. How did you start in this industry?
Gosh, I started out very early on, but as a chef. And in my 30s, I moved to front of house and I started at Cantina del Ponte at Butler's Wharf.
So may I just ask what made that change? So you started cooking.
What made the change? Probably, I wanted to have more strings to my bow.
Mm-hmm.
And know the whole from the front and back of house. And because in the future I wanted to have my own restaurant, which I did do in the end. So it was, it was just fortuitous that I was offered a job at Cantina and learnt a lot. And dealing with volume, which was always interesting, and cancellations and all those sort of things. And also, people in some cases being in the wrong restaurant at the other end of town, because at that time Canteen was open in Chelsea Harbour. So you could often have guests being in the wrong restaurant and having to get from either Cantina to Chelsea Harbour or vice versa in Friday night traffic or on the tube. So obviously, that was quite an interesting one, keeping people calm and relaxed because they're in-laws at the wrong place. So it was very interesting working there, and especially with Comran at the time, because it was obviously one of the premier restaurant corporations, and it was such a buzz because it was the 90s, and restaurants, he changed with Quaglinos and all of that. It was it was just so different.
Yeah, was that a difficult transition for you? Because it's quite a different role, isn't it, going from being a chef to front of house?
I didn't find it difficult. I enjoy people. I like people, quite chatty and open. And so I found it so interesting, all the different people you would meet, and the customers, and, just all those sort of funny little things like, somebody would walk through the door and it's obvious they've had a domestic in the car on the way there and they seriously need a Negroni or a glass of champagne or something, and everything's going to be lovely. And you're here now and you're going to have a nice evening and you can, stop stressing, really. It would be interesting because every service is different.
Yeah. You mentioned Conran. I think it was, they were at the top of their game in those days. I remember early in my career I worked for Conran, and it's probably the best training program I've ever experienced. Did you find that in the transition from being a chef to going to front of house, that the Conrad systems helped you a lot?
The systems, the way everything, is written down. You had your Bible and you knew, and everybody knew.
Yeah.
Just simple things like doing a briefing before service, and so many places don't do that or don't know why they should do that, because it's like you've got certain regulars coming, or it's a special occasion, or there's children or someone in a wheelchair, and all these sort of things that have to be done in a briefing. But a lot of restaurants don't even know what a briefing is, and you just think you're making.
So what is a briefing for our listeners, in your view?
I think a briefing is right. You're going through today's specials, what's not on, any problems in the kitchen, how we've got to turn tables tonight because it's Valentine's or something. Going through the regulars that are coming, any dietary requirements on set tables, just so that everybody's on it and there's no confusion, because I think it's very unfair if the staff aren't briefed and are aware of these things, then they can be caught on the hop, can make mistakes, which you don't want, and then they get more nervous, especially if they're new. And it's just nicer for everyone to know what the plan for tonight is, what's going to be happening, and then when we have a debrief at the end, when we're polishing the glasses, and we can go through what went wrong, because you weren't listening at the briefing, or you were told to do X, Y, Z, and for some reason you didn't because you went out of your section. So, you can't really tell them off or bollock them if you haven't explained first. You can't expect them to be mind readers and understand what you want them to do or what's expected of them if you haven't trained them properly. So,
right, yeah.
Don't know what you think of that.
Absolutely, yeah. So Cantina, what how long did you work there?
Oh gosh, about a year. And then where did I go after that? Then I worked for Pelican Group because I wanted to see a different kind of setup, because obviously Cantina, Le Pont de la Tour along there, it was a higher end. So I wanted to see what sort of the high streety type of place, how they worked and their systems. And then in 2001, my husband Louis and I, we bought a restaurant in Ealing and opened the Walpole. Oh. And the big thing for us, Louis said, when we have our own restaurant, I don't want to be in a basement anymore. Because, in the winter, you don't see daylight. No. You go to work in the dark, you leave in the dark. So it took us a long time to find somewhere that was long and thin with the kitchen at the back. Unfortunately, it was open plan. So chef, when he was throwing a wobbly, added to the entertainment, so to speak. And so, we found the Walpole and we lived above the shop. So we didn't have that hour or two commute every day. And I do like my sleep, so that was good. And we opened up and we realised that the area, most people go to restaurants on Friday, Saturday night. And we didn't think that we would be able to sustain a restaurant, lunch and dinner in that area because of the demographic and various things. So we did a cafe in the daytime, and only on Friday, Saturday night, we were fully licensed. Friday, Saturday night, we did dinner, and we changed the menu every week, and it was short and sweet and seasonal. People would be sort of surprised in asparagus season because there'd be asparagus starter, asparagus on the main course. And then when that was finished, there wasn't any asparagus till the following year. And, 25 years ago, people didn't quite understand eating seasonally. And, it being the best quality and all of that sort of thing. And obviously it being a local place, you got to know people very well. And what would often be funny with the younger couples is quite often myself or one of the waiters or waitresses would be the first people to know that someone was pregnant because they weren't having their raspberry martini or their usual aperitif. And, I knew them so well, I'd give them the look and they'd go, yeah, we're preggers. And, that would just be lovely. And then also you'd see the children grow up and they'd come to the cafe. And what always used to be funny is some of the parents basically lied to the children and said, children, can't go to the restaurant on Friday, Saturday night. They could if they were well behaved and, sort of over 10. But just so the parents could have a nice dinner and know, it'd be like, no, you're only allowed to go to the cafe, but you can't go to the restaurant. It was lovely, and I'm still in touch with many of our old regulars because they became friends over the years.
Was that a huge focus for you in the start of your career on the regulars? Because I know there was a lot of that was very important, isn't it, about creating those relationships?
And when you're local place that you can wander around and, you know, feel comfortable and relaxed. And, you know, when they come in, you know, you take the menus over and go, you know, your usual. And so, you know that they like a vodka tonic or a glass of champagne or a Negroni or whatever. And, you know, you don't have to think about it. They don't have to think about it. It's just, it just feels you're more at home. And comfortable and welcomed and sort of, and, you know, people would sit down and just sort of go, can relax. So, yeah, it was, that I think is very important with your regulars.
So how did you cultivate this culture of regulars?
I think good food, the welcome, not being standoffish and snooty about it. It was very relaxed but efficient, professional and on it. I don't know. I think a lot of it is you get a rapport with people. And so there's always something to talk about, and you know, if they have brought their parents, next time they come in, you can ask how the parents are doing and whether, you know, they enjoyed their cruise or whatever. It's remembering those things.
Did you rely on your memory, or did you write stuff down? Or
memory and a few notes I would keep.
And when you did the debrief after, with you know, you would all share information, would you?
Yeah, share information. Because, you know, if one of the girls or boys had been chatting to one of the regulars for a while, they would be, oh, did you know they're doing this, or they're going to be moving or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we'd all be in the loop, which I think, is very important. So, yeah, it's hard work. It isn't just carrying plates. You know, there's more to it. And a lot of people, I don't think, quite realise that.
No, quite. I mean, that's part of the point of the podcast in many ways. I mean, it just brings me on to the next point, which is the importance of service. You know, you've been to Medlar quite a number of times, and we've discussed this between us. But for our listeners, why is service important for you?
It starts the second you step through the door, and the way you're greeted, and you know, if the receptionist is looking at her book and is sort of like, well, you know, a customer, what do you want? I mean, that's not a good start, is it? It's really, you know, not ideal. So it's that welcome. And, you know, if it's somewhere where there isn't a reception and you walk in the door and it's a busy place and you're not sure what to do, if somebody catches your eye, smiles and says, I'll just be with you in a minute, then you don't feel such a lemon just stood there thinking, do they know I'm here? What do I do? You know, it's just, And then I think, it's just that very first welcome, how you're seated, how the menu's explained to you, and smiling at everybody. I always think of it as like a swan, you know, all serene and lovely on top and then going madly underneath. You know, if there's a problem in the kitchen, it's not the customers. They don't need to know this. You know, you keep smiling and just keep them all happy and calm. It's like, I think, being on stage. It's like a theatre show. You know, 7:00 or 6:30, you open, put that open sign on, open the door, and here we go.
Does it make or break the experience for you?
Oh, big time. Yeah. It's so important. And a lot of places don't seem to get that.
Yeah, I mean, you're very well dined. You know, I know you've been to many, many restaurants. And does it amaze you how many people get it wrong?
Yeah. And I also like to dine on my own. I haven't got a problem with that. And like a couple of weeks ago, I went to the theatre in the West End and went to Noble Rot in Soho on my own, sat upstairs, and the service was fantastic. Because, you know, women dining on their own when I was a girl was sort of not quite frowned upon, but was very odd. And, you know, the fact that they made me feel very comfortable. Nothing was a problem. Had a little chat about the weather, as you do, being English. So yeah, it is very, in my opinion, very, very important. We've had, God, some service is just, yeah, it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. And also, I think one big problem, in fact, somebody was telling me this, not because we were talking about service or this podcast or anything like that, but a friend who's not in the industry was telling how they went out recently and the waiter who kept leaning over them had the most god-awful BO. And it really seriously ruined their meal.
Yeah.
So these sort of little things, being grubby. I mean, I remember once going, I won't say where, but somewhere in Knightsbridge, somewhere with who's a household name. All the staff, front of house staff, were grubby and looked as though they'd basically slept on the banquette the night before, hadn't cleaned up, and it was very off-putting. It just wasn't good enough, especially when you're somewhere that is Michelin starred, and it was just gobsmacking, really.
So we're talking about the basics here. Is there? So we're talking about kind of grooming, introduction.
Yeah.
Was there any others that you kind of, when you had a new member of staff, that you'd really say from the outset, these are
never
great
bullshit
basics?
a customer.
Yeah.
Never bullshit.
Yeah.
If you do not know, if they're asking you awkward questions and you do not know, just say to them, honestly, I don't know. I will go and ask Wendy, or I'll go and ask Louis, or I'll send them over, either, but don't bullshit them. Because there's just no point, and you'll get yourself into a right old mess.
Customers know when you're bullshitting.
Yeah. But it would be yourself, be relaxed, and it would always help if the staff, let's say, were of a socio-economic class who were used to dining out. It would be a case of put yourself in the customer's position, treat them the way you would like to be treated, and be yourself, smile, chat, be kind, and listen. Listen to what they're saying, because so many waiters and waitresses ask a question, don't listen to the answer.
I agree.
And come back
very
with
underrated.
Everything that you said you didn't want, and it's just so tedious. Well, it's a waste of their time.
Yeah.
Waste of their time, waste of your time. So why did you bother asking?
That happens to me almost everywhere I go. The waiter asks me something, and I already know they're not listening, So I know I'm going to have to repeat what I'm saying. Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I always... It's interesting. I read an article years ago about how in some restaurants, if the waiter has a pad and writes down the order rather than trying to remember it, they are more likely to have the service charge or a tip paid. Because it built confidence with the customer. And I would always, if I was walking up and down the restaurant and the table said, oh, can I order? I would say, you can, but let me go and get my pad. Because sod's law, that table, when you haven't got your pad, every single one of them will want to have something on the side or remove something and swap it for something else. Or, they don't like their vegetables near their fish, so could they have them on a separate plate? And that will be the time you haven't got your pad.
Yes.
I totally agree. When somebody tries to remember my order, I sit there and it actually stresses me out.
Because
so it stops the flow of the service, doesn't it? It stops your relaxation.
Yeah, always write it down. And the customers will feel, they might think, oh, maybe they haven't got a very good memory. But so what? It doesn't matter. Write it down.
And when people ask for things outside of what you'd normally do, how did you deal with that? Was that something that you...
We were prepared for that because we had, at the Walpole, had such a small menu. There wasn't a designated vegetarian dish. So, of course, veggies would be looking at it and be going, oh, there's nothing for me to eat. But everything that was vegetable could be removed from the other dishes. So they had more options than they realised. And quite often what would happen is I would go to the table and literally mark on the menu and go, I'll cross out all the things you can't have and everything else, you tell me what you want, how you want to do it. Because the risotto under the sea bass, you could have some of that as your starter. You know, you could have the pui lentils with, we've got some goat's cheese. You could have that with some grilled goat's cheese. And they would be like, wow, too much choice sort of thing. And of course, Louis being Greek and generous. I mean, our portions were generous. These poor vegetarians would have a feast and we would give them a doggy bag and they probably didn't have to cook for the rest of the week.
I did love the doggy bag.
Yeah. Yeah, the doggy
There's
bags.
not many restaurants that go, oh, do you like that? You know,
we're
wrapped up
into
for
doggy
you.
bags.
Yeah.
We love doggy bags. But that's also now because we have a dog and so he has eaten some amazing food.
It also adds to the value you
Yeah.
feel that you're getting as a customer because, you know, you feel like nothing's wasted as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you would get people afterwards, next time you saw them saying, oh, we did this or I did that with it and or made a hash or steak sandwich the next day and it was really good. So, it's good.
Nice.
So, you want to tell us your thoughts about why you enjoy coming to Medlar?
Oh,
Well, according to our open table data, you've been 300 times, more than 300 times.
Oh, no! Seriously?
So, having listened to what you said, I'm quite proud of that, actually.
Really, seriously, Louis will be amazing. Well, I can, Well, it was Sunday night was because we worked Tuesday to Saturday.
Right.
And Monday would be a work day, but, paperwork and, all that boring stuff. Sunday would sort of be our day off. And Sunday night dinner at Medlar was just like, And I'm sure sometimes the staff must have thought, those two, they haven't said a word to each other. Till I'd had my first glass of champagne, I wasn't compass. Because I usually spent, most of the day sort of in bed once I'd woken up reading the papers. And then it would be like, ooh, off to eat at Medlar. And we would both be so sort of shattered. And then once that first glass of champagne, coming alive. And then we'd start, talking about the week ahead and work. Because it's all consuming when you run your own business and you live and work together. That's it. It wasn't a job. It's your life.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle, isn't it? And it's tiring as well.
Yeah.
So.
And, the fact that at Medlar, we know all the staff, because that's the other thing. When you walk into somewhere that you go regularly and there's like, oh no, I only recognise one face out of 6. You're like, what's happened? But, always the lovely regular staff, so you can have chat, catch up. They know what you like. And bring it without having to ask. So if you're shattered and just,
you don't have to repeat yourself.
You don't have to repeat yourself. They look at me and go, "Do you need a glass of champagne?" I'm like, "Yes, please." And so it would be just that, the comfort of it and the fact that, if there was a new dish on, but there was a bit of it you weren't sort of mad keen on, not having it on there wouldn't be a problem. There was no tooting and, bloody awkward, not being awkward. There was no attitude. Also, the room is lovely. The artwork changes. Truffles are fantastic. just all, yeah. But I can't believe 300 times. But then also because we take friends, and it's sort of become a tradition with some girlfriends that we go in November for my birthday, and they all look forward to it. And then, of course, you bring friends, and they love it. So then they come, and I get messages from them going, "We went to Medlar," or whatever, and it was lovely seeing David, and so
And you can bring Horace too.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning when we came, and Horace is our chocolate brown Labrador, and he's called Horace Walpole, and Horace when he was a baby. The good thing was that we could park outside and leave him in the car. But now that he's older, I'm happier taking him in a restaurant, because when he was younger, he was just too excited, wanted to go and see everybody and wouldn't relax. But now he's older, he'll just happily lay there and watch the world go by. So it's less stressful.
Wendy, tell us how you build and motivate teams.
Yes, that's an interesting one. Okay. At the Walpole, we used to, what would happen was a lot of the staff would start in the cafe before they would work in the restaurant setting, opening wine, making cocktails, and serving a formal dinner service. And a lot of them would start as Saturday girls, and it would be their first job, any job.
Yeah.
And so I was starting from scratch. So it would be their personality and willingness to learn and enthusiasm.
You kept staff for a very long time, didn't you?
We were really lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, at the beginning, when we first opened, I had a fantastic waiter, Sam, who was from Kenya and had worked in 5-star hotels. And Gary Coyne, who was the assistant manager of Quaglino's, he came and helped us out when we very first opened the restaurant in the evenings. So it was great having him there to help show new staff how and what on a more formal setting. So it would be a case of starting them off young, training them up in the cafe. Tended to be at the cafe at the beginning, and then they would move on to the evenings, and they would be buddied by someone senior for as long as they needed. They weren't thrown in the deep end with a pad and pointed, and sent off to a table and said, go and take their order. That is not the way to do it. So I would take them, or Kirsten, my longest, was with us for 20 years, and is obviously now a really good friend. And she was my best trainer. And I had another girl, Maggie, who was studying next door at the university, and she's gone back to Hong Kong and has a cake business now. But she and Kirsten were absolutely fantastic at training staff and buddying them, showing them the ropes, which I think is very important. Very important.
You seem to inspire a lot of loyalty, and you remain friends with former team members as well. So
I think you've got to treat people fairly, pay them on time, not muck them about, be straight with them, be fair, and don't bollock them for something they didn't know about. That is so unfair. And never do it on the floor, ever. Take them away from the floor in the kitchen or out back somewhere and have a chat about it. Don't do it in front of other people or the customers, because that's not fair. It's really not fair. But I think also something that's very important that you two will probably think, feed them properly.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them, if they're students, they're on a budget, and then you want them fit and healthy. Because I would say to them, honestly, I don't want you getting sick, because you'll drop me in it, and I need you working. So that's why you're getting a, decent scoff. And they should always, be in on tastings, taste the menu, know what things are, and be honest with customers. If a customer says, what about this dish? If you don't like it, tell them. It's not I don't like it, but it is very popular with everyone else, or, it's our signature dish, but I'm not a lamb fan or whatever. But I do think, I think treating them well and treating them, the Christmas party or their birthday, those sort of things. And it builds a team. If it's a case of one of the other staff is like, oh, I'll bake them a cake, and someone else is, oh, I'll bring in some balloons and that sort of thing. It's nice to build a family. And especially in our industry, they're not necessarily English, and they don't necessarily live they'll live locally, but they're not natives, and so their job in a restaurant becomes a little family.
Yeah, and you spend so much of your time in those four walls, don't you, with each other?
Yeah.
And sometimes under a large amount of stress.
Yes.
And
a sense of humour is very important.
Yeah.
Very important.
You've got to be able to laugh.
And exactly, and we would. We would have lots of giggles.
So how many employees did you have at any one time? How many did you need to run?
12, 13.
Yeah. Okay.
At the beginning, there were 5 full-time, and then it would all be part-time. And then it would be, because of exams and things like that, it would always be a case of juggling the rota for when they needed time off and when they were going home. But we would always close for the whole of, do the last Saturday before Christmas and have 2 weeks off so that people could go away, go back to family if they were abroad or up in Scotland or wherever.
Well, that's important as well, that people get the time off that they need as well to go home, especially if they aren't native to this country.
Very. So. And it would be, nothing is a problem. Just communicate, warn me, tell me. Don't leave it till the last minute to say, oh, I can't work next week because I've got an exam. You knew you had an exam 2 months ago. Tell me, I'll put it in the diary and we can work around it. Just don't drop me in it, please.
And do you think that's why you got a lot of repeat custom? Because they always saw the same faces as well, going back to what you're talking about.
Most definitely. And they would, because obviously a lot of them were students, they would be doing all sorts of different things, like film students or artists or chefs or whatever. And it would be, they would chat to customers and get to know them and find out what they did, and then would get advice from them or be able to go and do some work experience with them or something. So it was mutually beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is lovely.
Yeah.
I think everyone should work in a restaurant at some point in their life.
Yes, because it gives you people skills.
Yes, and you learn to work in part of a team. You learn to work hard, and you meet so many different types of people as well. Yeah,
for sure. But unfortunately, in this country, it's looked down upon and seen as a sort of second-class job. It's something, that's done as a stopgap before I do my proper job.
You can develop so many skills from it, especially at a young age.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Confidence building, communication skills, stamina.
Yeah. Performance under pressure. Yeah. Multitasking,
definitely.
Oh, the list is on.
Oh, yeah definitely. Endless.
But I do think it's unfortunate that our profession is not given the respect it should have.
I would agree,
It's not fair. It's wrong, really.
Particularly more so in the UK as well, right?
Because in Europe...
Yeah, it's a different way that they look at it, isn't it?
Because you would start as a commie in Europe and hope that in 20 years' time you're the maitre d'.
Yeah.
And you will work your way up and you'd go to college to study. But here it's more ad hoc and sort of falling into it and finding it's your vocation. You didn't really quite mean, a lot of people, didn't intend to be in the industry for their whole life, but did because they found it suited them perfectly.
Yeah, I think it's going back to what you're saying. It's definitely a lifestyle. I think once you're in it, you become very passionate, don't you, about going to other restaurants and experiencing that from other teams as well. And you certainly get to know other people in the industry, and some really interesting people who are just, restaurant people are just a lot of fun.
Yeah, the characters. And the social life and that whole thing of going to a restaurant and sort of seeing someone and going, but what are you doing here? I thought you were. Oh yeah. Long story. I'll tell you later.
So Wendy, I'd like to move on to sommeliers. I know you didn't have a sommelier at the Walpole, but I I value the importance of sommeliers on my teams over the years. What are your thoughts on sommeliers and your experience of dining out and what they bring to the team?
Luckily, over the years, they have got better in that because in the old days, they used to be so up themselves and so rude and arrogant and unhelpful that it would be quite off-putting. And you'd have to be quite a strong character to be able to talk to them and get what you want and help, because they'd be so sort of snooty about it. Whereas these days, it's much more, it's not so arrogant. They're more open, more friendly, more helpful. There's more women doing it, which is fantastic. And so as a customer, you're not made to feel inferior and stupid. You feel, that you're, that they want to help you, and they're not just upselling and wanting you to buy the most expensive bottle of wine, and that they're encouraging you to try something new, even that you wouldn't even thought of. But I do think, unfortunately, a lot of the public don't really know how to communicate with waiting staff in restaurants. And as I say to my friends who aren't in the business, when you go to a restaurant and the sommelier comes, tell them what you like, tell them your budget and see what they come up with. Do not be frightened. Don't feel that you're being stingy because you only want to spend £40 or £30. That's not a problem. They're there to help you and maybe, show you something you would never have thought of. And quite often they'll let you taste it before you have a whole bottle of it. But if you don't ask, you won't get that. Don't be frightened to ask. And, you won't be thought of as being, stupid, because their job is to help you and educate you, and they want you to have a lovely time and enjoy the wine and be like, yay, that was brilliant. Thank you so much. That's the ideal anyway.
And you just don't know these days when people walk into restaurants as customers how much they do know about wine. Because like you said, the education is out there now. More and more people are starting to understand wines and how it goes with the food
and
as
they
well.
can have their phone and look it up straight away.
Oh yeah, the apps as well,
Whereas, in the past, you didn't have any of that. And it is good. It has changed a lot, thank goodness, because in the old days, some of them were horrible.
So do you like the theatre of it as well?
I love a beautiful service. I mean, I remember one of the most amazing meals I've had was at Pierre Garnier in Paris. The service there, oh my God, is amazing. It's like a ballet. And the maitre d', he's a little chap. He looks like the sort of the man who runs the circus. He's got a curly whirly
the ringmaster.
The ringmaster. Got a curly whirly moustache and little glasses. Speaks about 7 or 8 languages, and the way they do it is just, you could just sit and watch it, all day. It's brilliant. Yeah, I think when it's seamless. Oh, and I love a trolley. Oh my God, if someone's coming along the slide. I used to love Browns for Sunday lunch when they bring the beef over and cut it in front of you. That just adds to the theatre. Oh, and a bit of flambe. Well, do you know what I mean? Though, isn't it, though? It is just a trolley, and flambe is just, it's just such fun. Pyrotechnics at the table.
But Wendy, if we were working for you,
I'd love it.
If we were working for you,
I would just be I'd be sat down having something to eat and let you get on with it.
What would be the 3 non-negotiables?
Oh, what would they be? They would probably be turning up late, because that just is not good for the stress levels, especially if you haven't phoned to say there's the tube has stopped. Do you know what I mean? Just turning up late is just not good.
That's important for you, isn't it, David?
It's one of my
very
it's
big
the
focus.
worst when you're looking at your watch thinking, where are they?
I don't think you can work for me if you're late, frankly.
No, it's not on.
No.
You know, it's just not on, really.
But it's not just late in the morning. It's late for the briefing, late to be on your mise en place, late to bring something to a customer to the table, everything.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that attitude also erodes the good staff that make an effort.
Yeah.
You know, so there's no point in having that person on the team because they're just going to, like you said, it's not good for the stress levels for you.
Yeah.
The rest of the team who have made an effort. Get resentful, yeah. So it has to be, you know, nipped in the bud very, very early. Yeah. Otherwise, they can't be a meddler-orian, as far as I'm concerned.
No, you've got to be on it.
Yeah.
You've got to be on it. Brisk, efficient, on it, and timekeeping is essential. What else, really?
Grooming sounds pretty important.
Grooming, very important.
Yeah.
And being
always nice to find out.
Open-minded, willing to learn, and not thinking you know it all, because no one does.
Yeah.
You learn something new every day. And I think really that, but just I think a willingness to learn and enthusiasm.
Yeah, you've got to have enthusiasm for what you do, haven't you? And I think that I think that the customers can feel that as well. If you're not being genuine and enthusiastic about where you are,
if you don't
they
want
start
to be
think,
there.
well, why am I here paying you money? So you've got to believe in the restaurant that you're working in, for sure.
And be proud of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
There we go. Okay. Sorted that one out.
How do you deal with those waiters that are know-it-all? You know, we saw a waiter recently, and everyone called him Nostradamus because he thought he knew everything. He didn't last very long.
And was he all this stuff he knew? Was it correct?
No.
Even worse. Because if you have got one like that who is maybe terribly bright and interesting, then it's fine. But if all the stuff they're coming out with is wrong or slightly off, well, then it's like, they wouldn't last long. No, they would be, no, wouldn't work, unfortunately, for them.
Well, you do have someone who works at Medley who knows everything. I don't think she's ever been wrong, has she? Bula?
Yeah, but she's like 700 years old. It's okay. She's the last 20 years with me.
But she's a very calm demeanour.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing, you know, you feel safe.
The other thing about Vula as well is she knows what's going to happen before it happens.
Yeah, she's got a lot of experience.
So she'd look at the table, I'll look at it, and it's perfectly fine, nothing going on there. She'd be like, no, they're going to have a fight in a minute, or something will happen.
Yeah. Women,
and then 10 minutes later, there's something happening.
When you can feel the vibe in the room or on the table and know what's going on. But I think that is more of a girl thing, because when I would be on the floor, obviously when I'm on the floor, I would stand with a member of staff looking down the room and just play a little game. What's happening on table 6? What do you see? And then see what they would come up with, and then I, would, but you've missed this, or that needs doing. And that's the thing, the thing that really gets on my nerves is staff who are walking up and down the restaurant, not noticing anything.
That's another non-negotiable, isn't it?
Or with nothing in their hands. And they've just walked past 3 tables with empty water jugs and they haven't noticed.
That is a good one, yeah.
That's sort of like... but not having something in their hands.
It is hard to get it right as well, when you don't want to watch a table, but you want to be able to be good enough to kind of see out your corner eye if someone wants you, isn't it?
Don't stare, but just slowly scan and observe and keep an eye out. And good service, as far as I'm concerned, is knowing what the customer needs before they know.
Yes.
And you have... So, if somebody's... let's say it's game season, somebody's picked up their bones to gnaw at, and they need a finger bowl. It's doing that finger bowl and taking it to them before they have to ask you, with some napkins so they can dry their fingers. Just little things like that. You know, being on it.
It takes
and aware.
those basics up to the next level,
Yes.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Having those eyes. And
You know, noticing that somebody is using their fingers to eat something that you wouldn't normally send a finger bowl for, but that you realise they have done that and give them one. And they are always, when that used to happen, they'd be like, wow.
I think it's easy to get bogged down in the kind of, this is when you bring this thing and this is when
Doesn't
you
have
put
to
that on the
be.
table. Yeah, no, out the box thinking is
there can be a little bit of wiggle room.
Yeah.
There has to be the routine and the system, but there can be
a bit of flexibility.
That was the word I was looking for.
Lovely. Wendy, do you have any thoughts on the industry today? I mean,
Cool.
Service-wise, I mean.
Well, I feel sorry for anyone who's trying to find staff.
Right.
Because nobody wants to work on the weekends. There aren't enough around. The cost of living, so paying them a good salaries to keep them, I think, you know, it's tough. It is tough out there. And I think if there was, I don't know, more formal training and certificates for staff that they could do, okay, it's going to sound weird, they could do it in their restaurant. You know, a senior member of staff could judge them and mark them, and they could be given something, you know, graded to give them
empower them.
Yeah. And them to feel really proud of what they're doing and want to get better and, you know, sort of go up the levels, if that makes sense. Like an apprenticeship, but not having to take time out to go to college to study because it's not viable because of the cost and time.
And the time, so little free time. Some people.
I think, you know, if there was something like that, that would probably help. But what do I know?
Wendy, we're going to finish with some, it's been fascinating to listen to you, but we're going to finish with some quickfire questions.
Okay.
I think you've answered one I'm going to ask right now. I think you've answered it already, but I would like to go into it again. Best service you've ever received? Apart from Medlar.
Yeah. That was
obviously.
Obviously. I mean, that's a no-brainer. I've had lots of really, really good service, but one of the most memorable was on my honeymoon in Italy, in Milan, and we went to a restaurant called Nadia. And the commie waiter he was, you know, spring chicken, about 75 years old. And his sole job seemed to be to deliver the bread. And it was like having a magic bread plate. There's fantastic bread. Because if you had eaten one of them, then another one would appear like magic. And it was just like absolute genius. I couldn't believe it. It was because I was thinking, I'm sure I've just eaten that one. Oh, well, lovely. And then they were fantastic. But the service in there, and it was family run. And it was just, that was just memorable because the bread plate and the old commie.
Yes. Experience.
Yeah.
Next question. Anyone in our industry that inspires you?
David from Medlar.
Seriously.
Because of doing this podcast is brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, for, you know, hopefully more young people in the business would listen to it and learn from it and be inspired by it. And that wasn't being crawly or anything like that.
Is there any book that inspires you or you think could inspire someone in this industry?
Oh gosh, no, because I haven't read any books on this.
Right.
But I would say the first book that inspired me was my first cookbook as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
Yeah.
But otherwise, no, not really. Haven't really had that much time to read books working in this industry, which is why now I'm looking forward to reading more books.
Nice.
Best wine.
Oh, champagne. Hands down.
Anything.
Best
Champagne.
Best cocktail? Because I know you're good
martini.
at them. Dirty martini.
For me.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I've had one of your, well, I regret having more than one of your, what was it? It was some kind of sorbet in the martini.
Ooh,
My goodness me. It was so delicious.
And you're very good espresso martinis as well.
Those are, yes.
Ooh,
but I used to say to people in the restaurant, like, okay, you're having an espresso martini, fine. And then they go, oh, can I have another one? And I would be, right, okay, I think this one I will make with decaf. Otherwise, you are going to be finding
you might
yourself,
vibrate to the roof. Yeah.
You'll be probably finding yourself at 3 a.m. thinking, oh, I'll clean out the kitchen cupboards or something because I can't sleep, completely wired. Because they are lethal. They're like liquid speed. It's dangerous.
Okay, so what's the best plate of food you've had in a restaurant? Most memorable, maybe.
Oh, God, there's been so many. Can I do 2?
Go on then.
Okay. Marchese, again in Italy.
Yeah.
Saffron risotto with a whole, perfect, no holes, no corners knocked off, sheet of gold leaf on top. It was genius. And great to eat, but that I was just like, whoa, very good. Nico Landenis, his pan-seared foie gras with orange. I dream of it. Because that was a game we used to play in the restaurant with the staff. It would be, your death row meal. And, where we would take them to places to eat for birthday treats or Christmas and that sort of thing. And you would choose your amuse-bouche from one and your starter and your fish course and your main course. And so, that it's a good fun game to play, actually. And it's different dishes from different chefs and different countries even.
So, your easy meal at home.
Oh, for me to get.
Yeah.
And only because I absolutely love it and Louis loves it. My scampi provençal, which one day I'll make for you. Yeah, no, because it is very easy and it's quick. Yeah, it's all about the prep. But, if you have your provençal sauce done before, the rest of it is just, not even 5 minutes. Fast food.
Lovely.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Wendy, it's been amazing. Thank you for joining us today. I've been fascinated anyway.
Yeah, it's been great. And
Thank you very much.
Everyone who listens to this enjoys it just as much as we have because it's been.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
Bit nerve-wracking, but fun.
Thank you, Wendy.
Yeah,
No,
thank you.
You're welcome.
Right.
Thank you for listening to Drive for Service podcast. Follow us on Instagram at Medlar Chelsea and make sure that you like and subscribe for future episodes.